Yes.
Reading over everything, you have a very strong emphasis on community and just a general population's responsibility to community. So my question is exactly that. What is an individual's community responsibility?
Well, I think it's important for people to participate at some level, right? Even if you're just simply reading the news or listening to the news to pay attention. It's important to vote, right? But if you can get involved in a community, you do what I call is building community. You make your community stronger because of your participation. So if your community has a project or an issue and you resonate with that issue, then, and you offer your mind and your efforts towards resolving that issue or helping with that project, then that helps build community. You don't pay for it, you don't buy it, you just participate. And it becomes something that, for me, it becomes a learning process. I get to learn new things because I get to meet new people who are doing those new things. I get to celebrate the success of what we achieve at the end of the day, whether it be solving a problem or building some event of some sort. In Gorge Tillicum, for example, many years ago, my friend and I used to sit in the basement of my house on Friday nights drinking a glass of whiskey late at night, and we're saying to ourselves, how do you build community? How do you build community? And we said, well, we need to do something to bring the community out. And so we went and asked the community if they'd be interested in coming out to an event. And they said yes, so we built it. It's now called the Gorge Candidate Picnic. It has 15,000 people every year. That's an example of how you build community, how you get involved.
Thank you.
Good.
I have another question about community. We as individuals are not part of a single community, but rather several. Our immediate interpersonal community, like our neighborhood, our provincial community, our federal community, and of course as human beings we're a member of an international community. And so my question for you is, which one of those communities do you think we have the most responsibility towards as a citizen of them? Our immediate interpersonal community, etc.
I think it starts with the immediate community, so what's around you, your family, is a very important community to participate in and be part of. It goes from there to your neighbors. It goes from there to your history of employment, your education. It goes from there to the bigger issues if you want to get involved with the macro issue as opposed to micro issue. I talk in economic terms sometimes, micro, micro. The micro would be your family, the macro would be the world's family. So it depends on how your interest is and how much energy you have, but you start with your immediate community and make sure that community is working and you're participating at a level to help it work.
Question here.
How did you find your place in your community, I guess, Gorge Tillicum?
You know, I'm a person that, I kind of live life serendipitously. In other words, when things happen in front of me, I take advantage of that happening. I'm interested, I'm curious, I want to learn. I'm 63 years old and I haven't learned anything yet. And I'm still trying to learn. I'm still trying to learn how to play guitar. I only got 15 of them. So what I did in the Gorge Tillicum community is I realized that things going on around me that I thought could be done better, or that could be done differently. Like for instance, the community had security issues. There are people who were worried about people stealing things out of your yard and whatnot. Well, how come that was happening? Why was that happening? So I wanted to know more about it. I got curious about it and I got involved. And I found out that we weren't having enough people walk around the community because everybody was driving. So I started working on that issue. Well, how do you get more people walking and cycling in your community? And we came up with solutions that have got that going on more and more in our community. We wanted to get to know the neighbors. When I moved in, nobody knew who was next door. Everybody on the street now knows who each other is because we've developed systems to get in contact with each other. You just have to start sort of looking at the opportunities that are in front of you, taking advantage of those opportunities. Yes?
In the triangle of urban development,
I know what you're talking about.
when there's the transport-based development, the oil-based development, and the unplanned development or urban sprawl. So see, I don't know if you've heard of it.
Oh yeah.
So where do you think Canadian cities like important like Vancouver, Toronto, Quebec stand in each place like?
Have you ever heard of something called smart growth?
Yep.
Okay, smart growth is a fairly new term in the last 20, 30 years. It's something that I've studied quite a bit, and understand that you have to find a way to find, I would call it economic balance. And when I talk about economy, I talk about not just the fiscal side of the economy, but I talk about the ecological economy and the social economy, right? If you want to see a perfect economy, go to an untouched rainforest. Examine that. That's a perfect economy. If you go to a rainforest that hasn't had any human involvement, and take a look, you'll see transportation working. You'll see healthcare systems working. You'll see social standings working. You'll see all kinds of recycling. You'll see all kinds of rejuvenation and growth. You'll find that in a natural state, right? So when we look at our economy that we've built around cities, we say, what have we done to make them work and not work? And you can see, from a financial point of view, we've been a disaster in terms of transportation. The subsidies that are behind the car-based transportation system are massive. And nobody really understands it because they're not exposed to people to see. So if you want to make an economic choice of whether you're going to walk, cycle, or take transit, or drive your car, or carpool, all those different choices that are out there, you don't have the right signals to make the right choices. So in a community like Victoria, we want to develop signals to show people that there's different paths they can take that would be more economic to them and to the community. A good example is look at your tax bill. Your tax bill tells you how much it costs for education, tells you how much it costs for transit. It does not tell you how much it costs for your road. So how can you make a good economic choice whether or not to buy a bus pass or a car if it doesn't tell you the true values of those things? That makes sense? Yes?
Paul, through your experience, what have you found is an effective way to get youth involved in your community?
It's difficult. Youth are very busy. When I was 15 and 16 years old, I had no idea what I wanted to do in the future, but I found that when people asked me to be involved in something, I would say, okay. So I ask. If I need some help from a different mindset, a different generation, I go to the people that I can ask that question. I would come to a group like this and say, what do you think? Can you help me solve this riddle? And so it's simple, and even in the Gorge Tillicum Community Association, we're a bigger community, and we have lots and lots of different things to worry about, from transportation issues to housing development issues and so on down the line. I simply say, well, I need some help with this particular issue. I go ask. So there's a couple of pieces of advice that I was given at a very young age. I was very fortunate to work for Stuart Hodgson in the Northwest Territories many years ago. And he told me, he says, there's only two things you really need to do and know. One, never be afraid to make a decision. And two, you don't have to know everything. You just have to know who to hire, or where the resources are, how to do the research. And the last thing I'll add to that is Howard Hughes' advice is never make a decision until you have to. So don't make a decision in a hurry just because you think it's a panic, I'm going to make a decision today. Stand back and think about it a little bit more, and then make it. That answer your question? Yes?
You said transforming neighborhoods and communities. You said that like on your themes.
Yeah.
So how do you want to transform neighborhoods? Like you said something about how do you want to transform neighborhoods and communities? You said something about with issues about not knowing your neighbors, and you did something against it. So are you looking at issues that exist and then try to solve them, or do you have your image of what a community should do?
You're talking about the ideal model of a community?
Yes.
I don't know what that is.
And
I really just don't. But I do know that I live in a community, right? And I want that community to have values. And the values might be shared, they might not. But they might be individual, but they're values, right? So in my community, when I first moved in there, we noticed that traffic was a big issue. That was one of the first problems we had, people cutting through the neighborhood, going too fast, and all those kinds of things. So we got together and said, what can we do to change that behavior through the community? And there's lots of different tools that you can use. There's technical tools, there's social tools, there's all kinds of things. I learned about those things and got to try and implement them. We're still working on that problem. It's 20 years now. We're still trying to figure out how to slow people down in our community. But it's coming through various kinds of innovations. So you find the issue of the problem, and you say, what are the tools and resources I need to work on that? And you gather them together, and you find out that the person across you has some brilliant ideas that you never ever thought of. And you put that on the table, and everybody else adds to it, and you build something greater. It's like 1 + 1 = 3. You know, the Beatles wrote great songs together. Maybe they didn't write great songs individually, but they wrote great songs together.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm interested in asking a question if nobody else has one. So I'm interested what question you went to youth about. So you wanted to solve a problem in your community and you felt you needed that input. What was the question? Or can you give me an example of that question?
We wanted to do a park management plan for Cuthbert Holmes Park, and we noticed the people around the table were like me, right? Older folks and who you know, figured, oh yeah, we got to keep the park protected for salmon bearing stream. We've got to make sure that there's nothing untoward going on in the park and so on and so forth. But we actually sought out advice from some of the students in the nearby schools and said, what would you like to see in the park? And we got some ideas, and they weren't as well accepted as I would hope they would have been. But maybe down the road we'll build some goodwill, and maybe we'll get something in place. But one of the main things we found out is they enjoyed the natural environment and wanted to know more about it. So now we have people actually making an effort to go and communicate with the various teachers and take people out for outings in the park. The fish fence in the Cuthbert Holmes Park is very, very popular among students now. It didn't start that way. It was a pretty lonely existence.
They did a huge art installation down there too. A huge art installation.
The art installation that we've done two. One is called Camel Sun. It's in the Gorge Waterway Park. And it's a statue of Camel Sun. The story is about her dealing with food supplies for the First Nations many, many years ago, and something she did that caused a problem. And so we have a statue of that, and we have some new art being put up on the Crayflower Bridge. But again, it's about trying to find ways to get community to interact more with what the surroundings are. When we built the Crayflower Bridge, one of the things we told the engineers is this cannot be just a bridge. It has to be about the place. And we were adamant about that. So if you go to the Crayflower Bridge now, you'll find little things in it that are about the place. The wood in the benches is built out of the old bridge. There, across the bridge, when you walk across, you'll see some salmon imprinted in the cement. It's about the salmon-bearing river waterway underneath. We have an art project going up, we have interpretive signs going up, and we have interesting lighting on the bridge. And the bridge has been designed to make it appealing for people who want to walk it rather than drive it. So when they drive across it now, they're looking around saying, wow, this is pretty nice, as opposed to driving across it like a freeway. Compare that to the Gorge Bridge. It's like night and day. Yes, sir.
You say one of your goals is to bring communities together, to connect them. How do you propose to do that?
Canada Day Picnic. Gorge Canada Day Picnic was the first thing we did. We've done many other things since, and the latest one is we built a community garden. We started off with a lot of people opposing the idea of using public land for a community garden. And we understood that, but we wanted to talk about it. So we went out and had conversations, lots of conversations. We had teas in people's living rooms. We had open houses. We created opportunities for people to come out and tell us what they didn't like about it. And gradually over time, the support went from 50% to 95%. And we built one. That community garden now is beautiful. It's an example of how you build community in Saanich without using staff or a consultant to do the work. We did it ourselves. Saanich right now is going through a governance structure review. And the trouble right now with it is that they're focused on having staff tell them how to do that and having a consultant tell staff how to do that. I've been saying for some time you don't need those things. Staff are a resource, an important resource. Know who to hire, right? But the community itself has a pretty good knowledge base on what they need to do in terms of governance and what they'd like to see. You should start there.
One last question.
Yes, sir.
There are some crime issues in the Tillicum Gorge area, as there is in every community. For example, the Tillicum Mall parking lot by the Silver City there has the highest rate of car break-ins and robberies anywhere in Victoria, really, in the capital regional district. I mean, obviously you can't act as a vigilante, but as a community member, what's your role in trying to solve that issue?
It's a difficult one because that land is privately owned. And it was developed in a private way. If I had been around when that land was being developed from an outdoor theater like it used to be, I would have advocated for a much different design, substantially different. I would have advocated for something that looked more like a village, with more people living there than the retail. We have already given approval and support for 2 residential towers on that site. They're 9 and 12 stories because we want more people living on the site. Right now, it's a piece of cement in the middle of the night, so it's easy for people to run around and do things, especially when the theater's in operation and the mall's closed. They built a car park in a design that didn't consider security issues at all. It's just it's bad planning and bad development. You've got to try to get around that in your community and advocate for good development. And there's no reason why anybody should be afraid of development. You just have to figure out how to do it with all those elements in play. Security, social elements, the environmental elements, and the fiscal elements.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.